Welcome back to the Acoustic Shoppe channel, your official source for all things acoustic. Did you know that?
I've heard it.
All right, there you go. Well, today we're going to be checking out the first look for us as the Acoustic Shoppe, the Yamaha LL16 series. We're going to be telling you guys all the specs, what we think about them, what we like, what we don't like, as well as give you guys a tone sample so you can decide what you like and what you don't like about this guitar. We're going to do all of that right after this.
Some have done the best they could, some have tried to ease my troubling mind.
Well, Jeremy, it is official. We are now Yamaha dealers, and we have got our first batch in, and none were more talked about than the LL16. So many people online were asking us about this. And before we get into all of the cool stuff about this guitar, I would like to encourage you, once again, please push that thumbs up button.
You know the majority of our viewers don't subscribe to our channel. If everyone that watched the video subscribed, we would be ahead of Mr. Beast.
Really?
Absolutely.
I didn't realize there was that many guitar fans out there.
Yep, they're watching the video, they're just not subscribing. You guys are missing out if you haven't subscribed. Please take a moment to do that. But yeah, if
we had his subscribers, we could give away thousands and thousands.
We will give away guitars.
Yeah, we would.
Right and left.
Yeah, we would do that.
Anyway,
so we're going to go over the specs on these guitars. The guitar I'm holding is the Rosewood one right here. You are holding the M for
massive.
Massive, that's it. No, it's the Mahogany version. These are all solid wood guitars. They're priced at $899.99. It is their original jumbo shape. Now this is a little bit different than their dreadnought shape, and it does, I actually found this very interesting. I tried to put this into a standard dreadnought case. It did not fit. So it is a little bit different one for those. The guitar, the tone woods on this particular one has a solid Engelmann spruce top with the A.R.E. System. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means here in just a minute. It is a solid rosewood sides and back with a mahogany neck and a 5-ply rosewood inset. So it's like a 5-ply neck with the rosewood marks.
I guess for a little more stability.
For stability. That's exactly what it's there for. It does have an ebony head plate with the binding on this particular one is maple on the wood, or wood binding for the body, and then it does have a plastic binding on the neck and the peg head. The fingerboard and bridge are ebony, just like most guitars, and it does have an adjustable truss rod. It does have a different, I'm going to say it's plastic. It's listed here as urea or urea. I don't know how we want to pronounce that. You guys out there in internet land, you got a better idea of what it is, let me know. But it does have gold-plated cast tuners in here. These are sealed tuners. A modified non-scalloped bracing, which is kind of interesting here, especially after playing these guitars. Does have their gloss finish on the body and the soundboard, as well as a matte finish on the neck, which is definitely becoming the more popular thing to have right now. It has this hard bag style case that I'm actually really impressed with.
Yeah.
It's
not really your average gig bag. It's a little bit more substantial.
Yeah, it's got like an exoskeleton inside there, so very well done and pretty impressive. It is a high comfort traditional neck profile. That's what they are listing it as.
I would agree with that title.
It is just a comfortable neck, 1 3/4 nut width with a 25 9/16 inch scale.
I was going to say that's what it felt like.
Yeah, it's a little bit over 25 and a half. Yeah. So, in case you were wondering, I didn't know
that would be 8/16.
It does
1/16 over.
It does have a passive pickup already pre-installed, which is their SRT piezo pickup. Does have custom specs for these guitars is the A.R.E., the 5-ply neck, as well as a zero impact pickup, meaning that it doesn't affect the tone or do anything to it acoustically, which is pretty nice. So we'll kind of go over a little bit of what that means. The A.R.E. system is something
new to us, so we're learning this stuff as we go, and you guys get to be a part of the learning curve.
So A.R.E. is something that they have kind of developed, and it's basically, I'll read to you exactly what they say it is. It is the Acoustic Resonance Enhancement. It is an original wood reforming technology developed by Yamaha through precise control of temperature, humidity, atmospheric pressure. The molecular properties of the wood can be manipulated into a more acoustically ideal condition, similar to the molecular characteristics of woods in instruments that have been played for years. Which simply saying is they have their own variation of torification, and it is different.
It is.
We don't see that darkened.
Much more scientific. Whoever wrote that description deserves a raise.
I believe that was AI.
I was going to say it might have been ChatGPT, but so they're saying which is what torification does on a molecular level.
Yes.
It's basically baking out all the oils and the
and
sugars
also collapses the cell walls. And,
yeah, so which is what happens over a long period of time naturally with wood. But that just accelerates the process. So,
but it is different in that I know in talking to the Yamaha folks that they do not use as high of temperatures as what most people are using for torification or thermo-curing. They also add a whole bunch more humidity into this equation, as well as air pressure. So they're doing some things differently, and you won't notice it as big as what we see when we see these thermo-cured or torrified tops. It's a dark brown, toasted color, and you're not going to see that here. They believe that they have come up with a better way of doing so, and it does sound pretty darn good. So that is what the A.R.E. is. It is definitely something new for me. I think it's adding a little extra at this price point. And this guitar has been a surprise. I mean, it is a big balance. And I think part of that is that different body size too.
Bigger.
I'm seeing a bigger lower bout and a little bit smaller in the upper bout. So it does give it a little bit more color changes and things too.
Do you know much about the pickup? It's supposed to be slightly different with this the pickup system they have.
Well, it's got a passive pickup system, which is great to have, already installed.
Which means no batteries.
Yes, no batteries to change, but it is a little bit different. Again, Yamaha does everything on their own. They not only came up with their own way of torification, doing their own thing, but they also handle all of their own electronics, all in-house. And they came up with a version that has 6 different piezo crystals in it.
So still an undersaddle pickup, but then they just have a separate piezo for each string.
Each individual string, which is a very cool way to do it, get a little bit more balance, and I'm sure that they've done some work in order to kind of balance those out and make the strings a little bit more individually balanced all the way across. So that's a really good thing to have as well. Setups wise, I think these are great. I know we're going to get into, in fact, we should probably go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and get into our rating system so I can talk about some of the things I love, some of the things I don't love quite as much about this guitar. The tone of this guitar is where I think it absolutely stands out. The Mahogany one you're holding also sounds fantastic. I tend to prefer the Rosewood in this case because it is such a big and monstrous guitar. It's a surprise to me that it is a non-scalloped guitar because there's a lot of volume and pressure into this guitar, and I'm pretty impressed with that. So as a tone setup, I'm actually going to give this a 4.5 stars.
Yeah, I was very impressed with those. They seem to have a lot of punch and volume, and I really wasn't expecting the tonal quality of them in this price range. So I would definitely, in a light range, I would give this a 4.5.
Yeah, I think it's a really good guitar. Definitely heavy on the low end if I was going to put a spot where, tonally where it kind of sits. Setup and playability, I think at this price point, they are perfectly set up. For me, it is a little bit on the light side. We did end up, for our demo purposes, because I play so hard, we moved these up to medium gauge strings. They come with lights, but they are super, super easy to play, and I would tell people that are looking in this price range, it's probably a perfect setup for them. Again, like I said, for me, a little bit on the light side. So this is actually where I'm going to give it a little bit higher marks even still. I think this is probably one of the best factory setups I've seen yet, and I'm going to give it a 5-star.
Well, I think that's a fair assessment. I would probably give myself a little room, but for me, this is about the action I would have on them. They are set up very well. I always like to leave a little room there, but I'll stick with that 4.5.
There you go. See, we're doing pretty well right now. Build quality. This is where I have a couple of little things that I'm a little bit iffy about. I think the quality of the build is really good, but there's some things that kind of bother me a little bit. And by saying that, I think they bother me for no good reason, except for just the look of it bothers me. I have an issue
That might be more in the aesthetics thing next.
It's kind of also in the build quality too, because these are things I think that they could have absolutely fixed and made it a little bit better. When they put the headstock on this, they put it. They have the bound peg head, and then it just kind of goes halfway into the first fret where it ends up cutting off.
Two angles kind of intersect.
And I just kind of feel like that feels like a cheap way to do that, where they could have spent a little bit more time and kind of beveled that off and made it look a little bit nicer. I also, like I said, the inside of the scallop bracing, it looks a little bit rough and a little bit not quite as clean. Now the outside of the finish, everything looks good. The parts, all that kind of stuff is in there, but to me, I think those are two major points that would have been better. Oh, and I got one more thing that kind of got me. I like the 5-ply neck. I love that we have the stripes for the strength. But again, they got 2 scarf joints here, and they just stop right there. And like I said, I don't think that affects but I think they could have done a little bit better with those. So those are my 3 things that kind of bothered me a little bit. And because of that, I'm going to give it a little bit lower score, and that I would probably say this falls in about a 3.75.
Wow,
I know.
You're a tough one today. Now, I somewhat disagree with you because I'm thinking in like price range and build quality overall. I mean, the binding is done very well. I like the way they kind of beveled the bridge a little bit, so that like the edges of the bridge are slightly more beveled. The fit and all the tightness of all the neck joint, everything just looks really well done. I was peeking inside the guitar. I think they've done a really good job with the base bracing, the back bracing. Obviously, like we mentioned, they're not scallop bracing, but it seems like they use some of their technology to get the most out of the guitar and keep the price range down. So in like price range, I'm still going to give this about a 4.5. That might be my rating the entire way. I haven't seen many more guitars under $1,000 that are still built as well.
Like I said, I think we will disagree on this because of these variances. I'm used to seeing in this price point the Eastman stuff, which is a full, much better hidden scarf joints. The neck joint that doesn't have as much finish on the actual heel.
So that's where I was saving my stuff for aesthetics.
All right, there you go.
Different definition.
All right, we can do that. You're good. That brings us to the aesthetics line, Jer.
All right, here's where I'm going to get.
All right, you go for it.
All right, so the points you've already mentioned. I don't really love the way that binding it doesn't match color-wise or even material-wise on the headstock wrap as it did on the neck. So it doesn't really tie together, and then they come at alternating angles. So aesthetically, that doesn't appeal to me. Also, that it doesn't match the binding on the body. I understand they're probably trying to keep the cost of the build down.
But why even do a wood binding?
Plastic all the way around. Same thing for that. The finish on the neck. They put so much on there that it just kind of curves over around to the neck. So eventually, I see that cracking and splitting with a little movement in the neck. So I'm not a big fan of that. Otherwise, a good-looking traditional build to a guitar. I do like the 2 stripes in the back of the neck. I think it looks pretty attractive, but again, the way it stops right where the extra joints are on there. I view these as more aesthetic than build quality, so I'm going to give it a 3.5 for that.
I see where you're coming from. It does make sense. Those are aesthetic things, but I found it to be build because I know these are building
Because you don't know
things.
the definition of the 2 words.
If you say so, I will believe you. Those are definitely points that I have as well. Overall, like if you were just to look at this from the front, I don't have a big problem with it. It does have the heavy V. I'm not as huge a fan of that, but it is Yamaha. That's what it looks like. And there, so I go a little bit higher on the looks because of the outside. I like the finish. But I don't like those, what you just said. So I'm going to go with a 4 stars on that one. So there we go. As far as the sustainability, our shop sustainability mission, we do know that we talk to them and they do a lot of things as far as sustainably harvested woods. They have been really, really diligent on coming up with better ways to do a lot of this stuff. So as far as we know, this does fall in our shop sustainable. And if we find more things later on that don't, since it is such a new company, but they did make a very big point to kind of tell us about it because they know of our
sustainable mission.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna give this a thumbs up.
Yeah, so that will work right there. Overall value, this is another a really good. It's an $8.99 guitar. This is actually where I give it a lot of value. I think that this is a 4.5-star guitar. I think there's a lot of things here at a price point that really kind of knocks me out.
Yeah,
So.
I agree. And you've mentioned Eastman. It's a big bar to try to reach because they do put out an excellent acoustic guitar in that price range. And it's been hard to find some other competing ones that kind of keep up to that level. But I think Yamaha definitely deserves a spot, and anyone that's in shopping for a guitar under $1,000, between that $600 and $1,000, this one is a heavy contender, and it's got a lot of pluses going for it. So I will give it a 4.5 again.
There you go. As far as the type of buyer that I think is looking, who should be buying this kind of guitar, I think this really hits a intermediate, almost getting into a higher level guitar. It really compares, and this is another question that we ask a lot, is, what does it compare to? To me, this really hits the buyer who's been looking at brands like Recording King and Blue Ridge guitars, because a lot of the build things that we talked about, the aesthetic things, are things that I see in those kind of guitars. Mm-hmm. A heavy finish that goes all the way into the neck joint, from the body into the neck, which makes it a little bit harder. Why I bring that up is it makes it a little harder if they have to have a neck reset later on,
or if it starts
to separate
to move.
those, or if it separates, it'll crack that finish and kind of make a big movement there. And these finishes, I find this to be much more similar to those style of builds, but here's where I find it to be a big difference. Sound-wise, a marked improvement. I think those are great guitars at their price point, but these are really kind of falling in that same price point, and to me, they're a big step up tonally and playability-wise.
Playability and tonally and consistency. I think they use a lot of acoustic resonance technology to make sure they're getting the same build out of every guitar.
Yeah.
Where the fault I've had with Recording King, with Blue Ridge, a lot of people ask us why we don't carry more of those. It's just consistency. Like, some of them will be monster guitars. I'll say, you've got to buy one of these guitars. They're great. And then the next one I play is just like, what happened? It weighs 3 times as much as the last one, and it just doesn't sound good. Where these Yamahas, everyone we've played has been very consistent already, and
Plus, we know their system, which is
they have a system.
They have
in
a
place.
3D audio analyzing system where they actually build multiple guitars, and they want to see them fall in that same exact range. They're really working at
They
consistency.
understand the importance
over top
of
anything
make sure
else.
that every guitar is consistently a really good sounding one. So I would definitely rate this above that. And I would say, that buyer look for this is probably not the bluegrass player, just because of tradition. The Yamaha has never been a brand that you've seen bluegrass players play.
But that said,
these new FG9s might change that, and these definitely deserve somebody to give them a chance. But I do see more folk players, more country players. It has been a guitar that has been seen in those genres. So I expect a lot of those guys will be gravitating towards these. And folks that have their parents had one, their dad had one.
Sure.
It's definitely going to appeal to those guys as well.
Yeah. Great guitars, and we're gonna let you guys hear them now to see what you think it sounds like and see if it's the right one for you. Well, I hope you guys like that. These are definitely some impressive guitars, and I know we're going to keep these in stock because I'm a big fan already, and so has been everybody in the shop. All the sales guys over there. I have been really impressed with them.
Yamaha has a lot of big fans on the internet too, so we always hear a lot of really positive comments, which is, it kind of shows us that the sampling out there, that people have been very happy with these guitars. So
Absolutely.
Excellent instruments. We did do a recent video on your top surprises of the new FG9 series. We had early editions of those get to the shop before we even had any other Yamaha guitars in. And we got your immediate reactions on the things that surprised you about those. So if you'd like to see more about the FG9, check out this link right here. It was a really fun video.
Yeah.